first of all, because we have such a big crowd, I'd like to introduce everybody, or have everybody introduce themselves, from the Bayfront Advisory Commission. I'll start with myself. I'm Phil Davenport. I'm the chair.
Pass that microphone.
My name's Bob Magoon. I'm the vice chair.
My name is Josh Schulman. I'm the District 9 City Council person.
Chris Taylor, District 8 City Councilman for 13 more days.
Sandy Cohen.
Joe Bovee.
Andrea Lindeman.
Morgan Ayers.
Chuck Guthrie.
Bill Hurst.
Aubrey Moore.
Ashton Ricks. Reese Longwater.
Riley Brown.
Seth Quick.
Wendy Crutchfield.
John Colston, Planning Commission for District 9.
My name is Holly Cuellar, and I'm from the Planning Commission, District 8, and I'd like to thank Councilman Taylor for his service to our city. 13 days is awfully short, but we know that he's part of our future, and so I want to thank him for all that he's done for us.
Jeremy Klein, Deputy Director, Public Works.
Tori Eisenberg, Deputy City Attorney.
Hank Morrison, Comprehensive Planning Administrator.
Okay, and since Chris was able to say he's in that position for 13 more days, I will say that I'm in the chair of this group for about 13 more minutes. Okay, we're going to start with the Pleasure House Point Wetlands Restoration Project. We have the rules of order for this are going to be no comments, no questions until after the presentation is completed. Once it is, I have a list of speakers, people who signed up. I will call them in the order in which they signed up. And if you are not on this list and you decide you want to, you need to come up here and add your name to it. But that will be the list. So, Tony, take it away.
Okay. In a minute. Good afternoon, Bayfront Advisory Commission, City of Virginia Beach residents. I'm happy to be here to begin the presentation on the Pleasure House Point Wetlands Restoration Project. Yeah, I'm sorry. My name's Tony Utterback. I'm the city engineer for Virginia Beach. I have with me a team who is going to help present this project. I've got Jim White, who's the acting coastal program administrator, Mike Tippin, who is the Stormwater Engineering Center administrator, and Bob Kerr, who is our environmental consultant. He is with WSSI and has over 35 years of experience in environmental consulting. We will have a 30-minute presentation followed by questions and answers, as Phil Davenport just mentioned. I understand that there is a Planning Commission meeting tonight at 5:30, so I know in the interest of time, we plan to take questions with the people who signed up until 5 o'clock. So I'm going to begin today by showing a video. Many of you may have already seen this video. It was done by the Public Works Director, L.J. Hansen. It gives a nice high-level overview of the project with some really great graphics.
The project site used to actually be tidal wetlands, and tidal wetlands have a role in our ecology. They act as filters. They're an important biome for raising diverse creatures, plants, and other types of things. But in the 1970s, the site was filled in with sand and other material that was dredged out of the Lynn Haven Inlet. Our project will restore the site to its tidal wetland status. In addition to that, we're also able to use this as a bank, in other words, to be able to create wetlands that will allow us to do other projects that we can utilize those credits for across the city. Both woodlands and wetlands are important biomes for our environment. We'll still have forested areas that are directly adjacent to this, and we'll be able to retain those forested areas. But it's important for us to make sure that we have a diverse ecology, and for that reason, that's why we think this project is the right fit for this area. The $3 million was a planning level estimate, and it was done about 10 years ago. As the project evolved and more things were added, for instance, we're going to plant over 600 trees. That wasn't really known when we were in the $3 million era. And then, of course, over the last 10 years, the incredible amount of inflation that we've seen and just the costs overall of developing projects, a lot has changed since that $3 million estimate was kind of tossed about. When we did the design for this project, we did plan for sea level rise. So a tidal wetlands, by its very nature, has water come in and go out, and that will still continue to function in that format. This is actually a very rapidly evolving project. We're expecting it to start about the middle of February. Tree clearing and then land disturbance immediately thereafter. We expect most of the construction activities, the excavation part of the project will conclude probably in the July to August timeframe. We'll start planting right after that. The project we really believe will be relatively stable by October of next year.
Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Jim White, who's going to give an overview of the project location, followed up by the history of the project.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Everybody can hear me okay? All right. Yeah. Okay. So for today's presentation, we're going to go through this agenda here that will start real quick with the project location, the history, the restoration project scope, schedule, an example project of a wetland that's already completed, and then the city's commitment and the timeline. So project location, as we all know, the restoration site highlighted in red on the larger slide is located just west of Lesnar Bridge and south of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. South of the Chesapeake Bay, I'm sorry. And the Pleasure House Point area is overall about 118 acres of water, tidal marsh, sandy shores, and maritime forest. Now this area, as many of you, if you've been here for quite a while, would know years ago it was a high profile property that was once considered for a large waterfront development. But fortunately, right up to 2012, the Trust for Public Land, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and the City of Virginia Beach, along with the community, was able to preserve the land and for this area for generations to come. Now I'll go through a little bit of history of the wetland site. So a little background on it is in 1954, Princess Anne County, Virginia Beach Erosion Commission, and the Army Corps of Engineers identified this area as a spoil site for dredging of the Lynn Haven Inlet. But before the 1970s, the site pretty much existed in its natural condition as partially wooded inlet overwash area with broad expanse of wetlands. But in between 1971 and 1972, it was reported that over a million cubic yards of dredged material was placed within this area, and behind what was established had been constructed a perimeter dike to basically separate the dredging into different cells, and this raised the ground elevations in the site approximately 3 to 4 feet, pretty much covering and eliminating the historic tidal wetlands. Again, in 2012, through a collaborative effort between the Trust for Public Land, City of Virginia Beach, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the property was acquired and to be preserved. And as part of the acquisition of the property, a conservation easement was recorded over the 84.6 acres of the 118 acre site of the Pleasure House Point property. So little historical maps I got back in 1958. As you can, the blue outline is basically the border of the wetlands restoration site. And albeit it's not, this photograph, you can kind of see through it is where the old wetlands were located. And then we fast forward all the way to 1994. You can see on the south side, you can see the perimeter dike, and then where there had been dredge placement, and a little bit to the west, there were like dredge placement cells that were starting to have growth on them. As we jump towards 2002, the dredging in this area, sand placement in this area is long gone, and so now you can see kind of what the site looks like, and vegetation and growth over time. In 2011, and then of course by 2018, Brock Center is now constructed and being utilized, and then of course here we are today, 2024. So anyway, now the schedule's history for the creation of the Wetland Mitigation Bank. This is basically what's shown up on this slide. So between 2013 and 2014 was the development of the Pleasure House Point mitigation or management plan. Plan was developed in coordination with the community and non-governmental organizations, governmental organizations. And then there were a number of public meetings held during that time frame. Between 2014 and 2018, with the Pleasure House Point Mitigation Bank prospectus was actually completed in 2014, but that had been prepared and completed, and then that was part of the next, what's called the Mitigation Bank Instrument, which I'll talk about a little bit more here in a second. And then, of course, and then on the engineering side, the design plans were developed all the way up to 90%. And during that time, while we were also getting the permits, we received the Army Corps of Engineers nationwide 27 permit in February 2018. And then, but then in June 2018, construction was put on hold due to funding. And funding for the construction of this project was to be reprogrammed in FY26, because at the time we were utilizing this funding and other funding to support municipal building renovations. Now, onto in 2014, this Pleasure House Point Management Plan was put together. And you can see there were 11 non-governmental and government organizations that worked together with the community to develop the management plan. And the entire 118 acre site is managed consistent with conservation goals identified in this plan used to rank and fund the project. And that was to maintain habitat values, maintain coastal maritime forests, maintain water quality, and then maintain educational and recreational values not detrimental to others. The Pleasure House Point natural area is managed as a natural preserve by the City of Virginia Beach Department of Parks and Recreation. So within the management plan, we have what is the overall master plan for the full site. Probably I'd like to think everybody can see the majority of this, but there is an actual, this exhibit is, you can go view it inside the entrance at the Brock Center. But as you can see from this, and look closely, is you can, in the exhibit, is that there are varying ecological elements of the maritime forests, the salt marshes, the oyster restoration, and of course, identified the wetland restoration site. And so, and then as part of that, when we mentioned about the conservation easement, you see the red border, but then the yellow amber border, please note that's the boundary of what is going to be the wetlands restoration bank is not included in the conservation easement. So, and so from the scopes to date, just to go a little bit more into what is called the prospectus, which is one of the first tasks that we had to complete in the creation of the Wetland Mitigation Bank, and it was completed in February 2014. The purpose of the prospectus is to present an overview of the approach proposed by the city in restoring and creating the tidal wetland and shallow water habitat functions that will become the mitigation bank. Once that's completed and reviewed by an internal, the interagency review team, we then move on to what is the mitigation banking statement. The mitigation banking instrument, or MBI, is the legal document for the establishment, operation, and use of the mitigation bank. The NBI develops guidelines and responsibilities for the establishment, use, operation, and maintenance of the bank. The NBI goes through a pretty considerable review and approval process. So the bank, this instrument here was approved and signed by the interagency team of the Army Corps of Engineers, the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality back in December 2020. And with that, I will now turn it over to Mr. Mike Tippin, who will present the restoration project scope.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Everyone hear me okay? Well, it's quite impressive, this turnout here, and it's good to see some familiar faces with the environmental studies team, Diana and Chris leading it up, Councilmember Schulman, Councilmember Taylor, and the chair. So I'm going to talk about, what are we doing and why are we doing it? So what are we going? We're going to establish or construct, operate, and maintain a tidal wetland mitigation bank. And so basically all of the wetlands we create are going to be banked, basically, that we can pull from on projects that the city does that will have impacts to tidal wetlands. Projects from the flood protection, dredge, transportation projects are some of the bigger projects that will have those types of impacts.
Mike, can you stay behind the mic, please?
Sorry, a little better?
Yep.
Much better. Sorry about that. So some of our goals and objectives. The goal is to create this mitigation bank, economically efficient off-site compensation for impacts to tidal wetlands that cannot be practicably avoided for the city of Virginia Beach. And then the objective is to create 8 tidal wetland credits, 6.22 vegetated tidal wetlands and 1.78 acres of non-vegetated tidal wetlands. So the total of 8 acres is very important for us. The purpose and need, currently within the Lynn Haven watershed, we don't have any available tidal wetland credits for us to pull from. We do have a need within the flood protection program for these tidal wetland credits. 2 projects that are coming up pretty soon. Windsor Woods Pump Station needs about 0.4 acres, and then the North London Bridge Creek, South London Bridge Creek needs about 2.3 for a total of 2.7 acres. So here is kind of a zoomed in area of our site, showing the boundary of our site. And to orient you, I'm going to call this the Brock Trail off of Marlin Bay Drive, leading to the Brock Center, right there. And then this area in red are trees that are to remain, and pretty much on the south side, that trail will be fully open the entire time during construction. So this trail will always be open to get the students from the environmental studies group dropped off and walk over to the Brock Center, and anyone else enjoying the area as well. And then in addition, this area kind of in the golden are trees that are going to be replanted. That is the area where the trees will be replanted, about 330 live oaks and about a little over 180 water oaks. The area in between is where all of our tidal wetland is going to be at. The current elevation in there sits around 4 throughout the center. Toward the east, it runs up as high as 6 or 7, and there's a little hill in the middle. So we're going to excavate down to about elevation 1 as flat, and then going down in the channels to -3. For some of those that are really into the, what do you want to call it, the Latin name, the scientific name of the species we're planting, the elevations we're planting them at, how much we're planting, this is our planting table here. And then probably one of the more important parts is during construction, how are we going to impact the community here that really enjoys this natural area, this 118 acres. So again, back to our property boundary. First thing we're going to have to do is install the construction entrance. This, in order to do that, the wood guardrail that's there, we're going to have to remove. The bus drop-off, we're working with the schools and the Brock Center to accommodate the drop-off area because it's pretty much right where our construction entrance is at. And the 2 conflicting, pretty not very good. This existing perimeter trail will be open a majority of the time throughout the construction, with the exception when we build a pedestrian bridge here. In order to flood the, tidal wetlands, we have to open up that channel. It's a small 18-inch, 24-inch culvert right now. We're removing that and bridging over it so we can get the flooding in there for the tidal wetlands. This area is kind of our main channel. And then this were the trees that are being replanted. So everything between the trees and that main channel is what's going to be the tidal marsh. So it's going to flood and ebb throughout the cycles of the tides. And our schedule. So designs will be complete February of 2025, starting construction February of 2025. We do have the back time of year restrictions that end February 15th, February 16th, 15th. We'll be in there working, so we are outside of the bat restrictions, and we'll run for about 8 months till October of 2025. Kind of breaking it down a little bit, site clearing, February to March, earthwork and landscaping, March to August, and then planting, June to October, with a completion date of October 2025. And then we go in the first year of monitoring, all the way through the 10th year, and then we have long-term maintenance in perpetuity for the entire bank that we're creating. And this is kind of a release of the credits, when they're going to be released. So we have a total of 8 acres that we're creating for tidal wetlands. The first 15%, or 1.2 acres, is going to be available when we issue notice to proceed in February. And then when we complete the project in October 2025, the additional 10% will be released for a total of 2 credits. And then after the first year of monitoring, October 2026, that's our key date that we have to hit, where we get the 50% or 4 credits, because of October 2026 is when we're supposed to start construction with the North London Bridge Creek, South London Bridge Creek work. And here's a fantastic example project that's in the city of Portsmouth. It's called Paradise Creek. Very similar to what we're doing here. It's about 40 acres, so not quite a third of what we have. You know, it's a large wooded area, coastal wooded area, with a restored wetland in the center. This is a picture of that restored wetland. So this is the vision of what you can see is going to finally come about when we're finished. The waterways and all the low wetland tidal marshes throughout, surrounded by the woods. Very similar to what we're going to have. And then our commitment. So the Department of Parks and Rec will maintain this area as a natural area preserve the same way they do through the conservation easement. And DEQ, through the mitigation banking instrument Jim was talking about, establishes a DOR, a dedication of restriction in perpetuity over this parcel here, that we can't develop it, can't do anything. So through the life of it, it exists as that tidal marsh. Then we have maintenance monitoring for 10 years. We're reporting 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10 years with to state and federal agencies, the credits used, periodic inspections, the maintenance, and then any catastrophic event in the first 10 years. Hurricanes, we got to come back in and redo it. And then long-term maintenance and land use restrictions in perpetuity, pretty much forever. And our financial commitment is about $12.1 million to build this, and that includes $135,000 for long-term maintenance. And then we have 2 pieces that are funding it, the coastal CIP and the flood protection CIP. The Pleasure House Point mitigation project, it's not fully funded currently for the FY25, and this is going to require an ordinance to transfer funds from the coastal CIP projects into the Pleasure House Point CIP. So timeline, presented to City Council November 26th. Today we're here presented to the BAC and the community. Next is that ordinance I was talking about on January 7th. That is when we go before City Council. And then construction begins, provided council approves it in February, mid-February 15th of 2025. And then this is pretty much the end of the presentation, but what's important, we have a QR code here that takes you to the Pleasure House Point website. And we also have an email address that was just created today, Pleasure House, or phpwetlands@vbgov.com. What's important with that, we've received an enormous amount of questions in the last week, 2 weeks, and they've been coming from all directions. If we can get our questions coming into this web address, it makes a much more succinct way for us to reply to them, and you can see all the different questions that are being asked. So if, much as possible, please use the web address and visit the webpage we have set up. There's frequently asked questions in there and it has responses in there. And with that, I'll lean to Chair Davenport to see if you want to start calling names or how you'd like to do it.
Well, first I'm going to allow questions and comments from the BAC members. And I will start with the first one. January 7th, you have a request to council
Yes,
for
sir.
transfer of money. In the worst case scenario, if that is not approved, what happens?
That is a good question. I really don't, what happens if it doesn't get approved? I think, what's that? Yeah, we'll have to delay the flood protection projects because it's critical for us to get the plants put in the upcoming summer up through like June to October, so they have an opportunity to root and get into our second year of monitoring in October of 2026. And that November 2026 is when construction starts on the flood protection program projects in the Partizan Plaza area. So if we miss that date, we delay everything by a year plus.
Okay, so one of the projects, the one over in Windsor Woods, Windsor Oaks,
Yes, sir.
that's underway right now, right?
Correct. That's kind of the first phase of the Windsor Wood Pump Station. We built a little island out there that gobbled up a handful of credits, tidal wetland credits, as well as Bow Creek gobbled up a lot of tidal wetland credits, which eliminated it. But yeah, we do have a tide gate set up over there at Windsor Woods as well, right near
So that
Trashmore.
project would then go on a hold. But it would not, you couldn't complete it.
Correct, that's correct. We
Okay.
wouldn't be able to complete it.
And as I recall, that was kind of the site of the worst flooding that Virginia Beach had back during Matthew.
Yes, sir. That area through there and through Princess Anne Plaza, kind of near the golf course, Bow Creek Golf Course, 2 to 3 foot of flooding within the houses, over, I want to say over 100 homes. I'm sorry. Oh, almost 1,000 homes were
Right.
flooded, off by a factor of 10.
And then that kind of led to the whole
The genesis of FPP.
stormwater program and the bond referendum and everything.
Correct.
Which, without getting this, that whole program becomes in jeopardy. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Just trying to help you out there, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Seth?
Oh, yeah, hold on one second. Bob has something to add.
Unless and until either this bank is open or another bank or the trust fund provides credits, projects can't go to construction in wetlands unless you have the mitigation available. And there is a bank that just received approval, and Tom Ty is standing right over there, so I want to recognize him. He has a bank in the Elizabeth River watershed that heretofore was not permitted due to regulation to sell credits into the Lynn Haven for any use. And we've been checking with him and the Corps and the DEQ and others. And I'm going to back up and say we've been checking with every bank, every regulator, the Virginia Aquatic Restoration Trust Fund, the Nature Conservancy, anybody that has ever banked, might be banking, expanding banks, and tracking this for well over a couple of years for the city, and watching the credits go to zero. And so for quite a period of time, there have been no credits. Tom just, I guess, about this past week, received the approval to sell credits into the Lynn Haven. So that's a great thing. The flip side is it's not an infinite number of credits. It's a finite number of credits. And the other concern is not only these projects are coming for mitigation credits from within the city, but other city projects. So even with a bank coming, a private bank able to sell into the watershed, those credits will be used by the city, by private developers, by other cities to use for their projects. And at some point, the city's going to find itself in this position again where all of a sudden the next project they anticipate to go to construction can't because they don't have the mitigation.
Did you say developers?
Yes. Now, developers can purchase credits from private banks. Mr. Ties is a private bank, so he can sell to both municipalities and private developers. This bank, the Pleasure House Point Mitigation Bank, can only be used for municipal projects.
Okay,
All right, that actually answered my question, so just, yeah.
Okay.
I've got one. Since this microphone's here, and it might involve the gentleman that was just answering, since there is such a limited amount of credits available, have private landowners been approached that live on the Lynn Haven River Basin to see if they would be willing to sell some of their property to create wetland banks?
I'm not aware of any. I don't know, Bob, if you are.
When the city was evaluating potential sites for a municipal bank, they were looking at the inventory of municipal land that was owned. The idea being that the city had already purchased land, and if it's surplus land they can't use for anything else, it's better for the taxpayers to use land that they already own than to purchase land. The other thing that happens is if you have to purchase land, the cost of the mitigation goes up because now you're including not only the cost to build it and permit it and get the mitigation banking instrument approved, but you have to actually include now the cost of the land. So no, the property owners around the Lynn Haven had not been contacted, to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to speak louder.
It sounds like initially you get some immediate credit once the project is approved, and then after it's constructed, you get another slice of credit, up to about 25%. The other 75% comes over time once you hit certain approvals through your performance.
Correct.
How likely is it that you're going to get approved for the whole thing when it's done, or is there significant unknowns that come across, or is it just pretty much a matter of time?
I'd say it's pretty much a matter of time. The unknowns would be if we had any type of hurricane, catastrophic event, nor'easter that comes in and wipes out some of the plants. But we have the commitment to where, per the mitigation banking instrument, we have to come in there, replant. So we have to continuously monitor the health of the plants and make sure everything's healthy in order to get these credits released. And we have to submit to the Corps, federal and state agencies, for their review of our maintenance, what we've been doing with the whole area throughout. And so those are the steps right there. So I would say, we're committed to the project. We have to get the credits. So we'll be out there if anything needs to be repaired, logs pulled out. Yeah, we'll be out there.
I have to ask this question,
Uh-oh.
and I think I speak for a lot of people. Given the extensive planning for the stormwater projects, I find it difficult to understand why this is coming so late, weeks before the decision has to be made. Why wasn't this included in the 2024 budget, for example?
Yeah, so they're moving fast. And we initially do the projects, we start with a PER, which preliminary engineer's report. And with that, we have not gone into a finite analysis of siting it, what are the impacts. It's not until we start getting into design, 30% design, where we really start identifying and seeing where these impacts are. And it's almost like a ball of clay when you throw it on the wheel. They shift around, they move around to see where can we ultimately sit it with the least amount of impacts, the greatest amount of benefit to the area. So it's continuously moving, and if it moves 5 feet, we've just eliminated 5 feet. If it moves 5 feet in, so it's a continuously moving project. And we've had other projects, the Bow Creek Stormwater Park, that gobbled up a lot of credits that were available for tidal wetland credits. The Windsor Woods Tide Gate gobbled up some credits that were available, plus a lot of other projects around the area were gobbling up credits. And they just gobbled them all up to the point we don't have them anymore. So that is the genesis of how we got to here.
Hi, if the project does move through, does the city currently have any plans to prevent sedimentation on all the oyster restoration projects in the area? Or have you guys considered doing any water quality assessments throughout construction to ensure that you're not having any negative impacts?
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, so
I missed that first part. On the oysters.
Basically, has the city considered sedimentation from construction because there's a lot of oyster restoration projects in that area, and how are you planning to mitigate those?
So we have, and through our state-approved E&S measures, erosion and sediment control, be silt fence, what are the other barriers, tidal barriers, turbidity curtains are all installed, and it's monitored the entire time. If we have a leak and one of the fences blow out, we're out there fixing it, removing it. And the second part question?
Yeah, so would you guys consider doing water quality assessments during construction? Because especially as we get into warmer temperatures during construction, when species are already at a heightened risk due to the warmer temperatures of the water, would you guys consider doing more testing to ensure they're not having any further negative impacts in the waterways?
Currently,
From turbidity
currently we do not, but that would be a great environmental studies program project. Just saying.
Okay. You have one more there.
Hi, do you have any plans of what's going to happen to all the resources that are extracted from Pleasure House Point? The environmental studies program has done a study, and there's about 5,200 trees currently standing. So are there any plans of all of this that's going to be extracted?
So when you say 5,200 trees, I'm looking at this boundary here. Are you with 5,200 trees within this boundary, or 5,200 trees?
5,200 trees within that boundary.
Within that boundary. How do you not know that? I'm sorry?
I'm just curious, how would you not know that?
Excuse me, just the DAC right now. We're going to open it up to the public in a minute.
The resources, have we accounted for them? What was your question one more time?
What are you planning to do with all the resources that you're extracting? How are you going to remove them? Where are they going to be put? How are they going to be disposed of?
So the trees, I don't know. All I know is it's going to be cleared right now, but where are they going to go? I mean, is there anyone interested in pine trees? Well, for sure, but.
All right, let's stop with the comments, please.
Hauled off, mulch disposed of. I mean, that's the best answer right now. And if you have some other thoughts on what to do with them, you're definitely open.
All right, thank you. I haven't received quite as many questions as Councilman Schulman, but there have been a lot of input from citizens, and I know staff is in a tough position. But given the nature of the stormwater bond referendum, we've heard multiple times in the past 2 years from our manager about inflationary cost, the need for new projects in the southern part of the city and some of the other projects that have been delayed, and some even in Shore Drive. Can you help this audience understand not the history of the bank, but, you know, at the beginning of the year, what was the balance in the account versus now we have this kind of rush. So moving forward, knowing we are not going to put aside the bond referendum and these commitments that are now over $1 billion, what's to prevent staff from coming back to council in 6 or 8 months, realizing that maybe we need 25 or 30 more credits that aren't available on the market?
So I'm trying to think how to, Tony, you have an
I'll help. Much different height difference here. I'll help answer the funding piece. So right now, the Pleasure House Point mitigation project in the CIP has about $426,000 appropriated to date, which we've been using to do the design. And it was also, there was the study that was done, the ones that we talked about, was funded from that CIP. So the transfer that we're asking council to do in January will be transferring funding from 2 coastal CIP projects to the Pleasure House Point mitigation project to begin the construction. The other piece of that is the bond referendum project, the Princess Anne Plaza, North London Bridge Creek Pump Station and Tidegate project is going to fund $5 million of this mitigation bank, since it only makes sense that the projects that require the tidal wetland credits fund the project. So $5 million is coming from the bond referendum project. As far as answering your question about mitigation credits moving forward, for the flood protection program, we are expecting, by creating this bank, we are creating a sustainable way for the city to offset tidal mitigation impacts. So it's creating a project for the future of Virginia Beach, so we don't need to purchase tidal wetland credits in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for being here. I had maybe 3 questions and comments kind of intertwined with one another. The first is the issue about the tree loss. It's a significant one, and that predominantly that's what I've heard, and you know, because I passed along the questions to you about the tree loss, and I want to have you help people understand, help me understand also, which is one of the reasons why at the very onset I asked, and the city agreed to go ahead and get our city arborist out there and take a look at what the resource was and what it is we were looking at. Also, our environmental studies students who are out there conducting their own analysis, their own inventory, and I know that there's some collaboration that's going to happen between you and the arborist to share and talk about those, those findings that you have. And beyond the environmental studies program, I want you and everybody else to know in the room that we have environmental organization partners here in the room too that have been communicated with, that have been engaged. Yes, this came on quickly, but there was a group of about 30 people on an email chain that we were trying to keep actively informed about opportunities like these. Where we had a council briefing on the 26th of November, but only council members got to ask questions about it there, and which is why I thought, and we thought, that it was important to come here to not only have the commissioners be able to ask questions, but also members of the public to attend. And have the presentation be recorded so that people understanding and appreciative that it's a work day. Not everybody can be here. So we want people to be able to see and hear some of the dialogue. And our environmental partners are, in the room are people like Chesapeake Bay Foundation and Lynn Haven River Now and Friends of Live Oaks, and Wetlands Watch as well, just so people have a sense for who's in the room. And you had mentioned in the presentation, the plan is to plant 600 trees. The numbers I saw before, they were a little different up here, but 336 of them, I've been advised were supposed to be live oaks, 192 of them water oaks. And these are hardwood species, and I'm not saying one kind of tree matters more than another. And a lot of people know I have 3 kids that are named after trees, so I love trees, but there is significantly more species value in hardwoods and live oaks, especially in these coastal environments, as opposed to what essentially has been volunteer pine trees sprouting up on top of dredge spoils. And yes, it's beautiful, yes, it's pristine, and yes, there's wildlife habitat there, but wetlands also provide their own unique and very important natural habitat. I mean, it allows flushing of pollutants from the road in a way that trees cannot. The wetlands grasses hold and stabilize the shoreline and help us to remain resilient against coastal storm surge and the effects of the tide. So these are really, and they're their own unique. They have their own biodiversity to them, and shellfish and things that are crawling around in even the non-vegetative parts of the wetlands. So yes, we're losing some volunteer trees, and yes, we should go out there, and I hope we do, and I know we will go out there and identify mature species of value, so that if we can find a way to avoid impacting them, and you can mold that ball of clay around them a little bit, great. If we can find a way to relocate them with friends and partners like Friends of Live Oaks, great. But there needs to be emphasized the value of the resource that we're creating in the wetlands, while also appreciating, yes, we are losing some value with these predominantly pine trees. We'll see what they actually are when you're out there and we have a chance to work with the arborist. So I really want to emphasize that we're sensitive there. And then on the question of the timing, I know you had partially answered it, but everybody in the room, and myself included, kind of feels like we got backed into a corner on this, and the timing was abbreviated. And an explanation I got was that we had been looking for a private bank and had been intending on using it, and then we found out that wasn't going to be available, and then we had to pivot and look to a property that originally, as part of this plan, was intended for this purpose from the get-go, and had gone through some levels of permitting in 2018 and before. So, and is perfectly situated in a sense that it's in the same watershed to be of use. So. I hope you can elaborate and confirm that, because that's what I had heard, and that's part of why we're in this time crunch. And this also isn't just for flood protection program projects. This is not just for stormwater projects. We need wetlands credits when we build roads, when we build bridges, when we do other types of infrastructure projects that are critically important to tens and hundreds of thousands of people. And so anyway, can you elaborate on the timing? And I'm sorry to go on about this, but I've been living it just like you have the last several weeks. So, and thank you for how responsive you've been as well.
Yes, you're welcome. So as Mike elaborated in his answer, I will elaborate a little bit further. So the projects right now in the Windsor Woods, Princess Anne Plaza, and the Lakes area, we have 7 projects that we've combined into one design-build contract. That contract, we have that design builder under contract right now. They have a timeline to design and construct all 7 projects within 10 years. So that timeline means they're going to be complete in 2031, latest 2032 for the pump station to be functioning. So with that in mind, we, as Michael said, each of those projects had to reach a certain level of design before we knew what those tidal wetland impacts were going to be. We didn't anticipate them to be what they are, but the design pointed out that we are at 2.7 credits that we need for those projects in the flood protection program. So because we have a design builder under contract, we are facing possible delay claims if we can't provide a mitigation bank for those projects. Now, while we anticipated there to be tidal wetland mitigation credits available, all of the construction in the area, and as was already spoken to about how private entities also purchase these tidal wetland mitigation credits. Look at all the private development that has been occurring in Virginia Beach just in the last year. The large Amazon facility, there's 2 large facilities that require tidal wetland mitigation banks. So the city is competing against the private side to obtain these credits. So while we knew we were going to need them, we didn't know how many we were going to need. The design reached a certain point where all of a sudden we have the amount that we need and they weren't available. So we have to move fast because we are trying to meet a deadline on the flood protection projects. I hope that helps answer your question. Oh, one more thing. We're going to have our environmental consultant elaborate.
Just one thing, on the mitigation banking side, all of the banks trying to bring credits into the Commonwealth of Virginia, no matter what watershed, James River, et cetera, are all experiencing delays. The delays have caused fewer and fewer credits to be able to come on the market. So while there were projections about how many credits there would be available, even those numbers of credits have not shown up because it's taking longer and longer to get those banks approved. Whereas this bank is already approved, it's just been sitting kind of on the sidelines because other providers have had credits. But as those credits were diminishing, other credits were supposed to come in that just haven't materialized.
Bob, thank you. And just as a follow-up, because we heard somebody suggest why don't we just go buy some other coastal property somewhere else and create wetlands there? Would it be fair to say that's exactly what we did here? Is we bought this property with the intention of creating a wetlands bank, and then and here we are. So,
right. When the city bought the larger Pleasure House Point properties, 112 acres, this piece was identified to be used specifically as a mitigation bank. And during the time that everything's been delayed, the trees that weren't there have grown, and the trees that were there have grown. So it's become forested, but you have to remember, and I'm an environmental person. I've been doing this all my life. I've been an oceanographer by background. This site was a tidal wetland mitigation site, and it was filled with sand intentionally to dredge the inlet. And then the trees have, as we call it in our world, volunteered to grow where they are. The rest of the site has got a lot of trees and they've grown. It's unfortunate they've got to be taken down now. That's an added cost to dispose, to have to deal with all that. But yeah, this site was located specifically for this reason. It's just, yeah, we are where we are.
Okay, I'm going to stop the comments and questions from the BAC right now and get on with letting the public have a chance to speak. And I'm going to call people, first the person who is ready to speak, which is Steve Vincent, and following that will be Kaylin Salagi, if I said that correctly, and then Erilyn Malikran, and I'd like you to go up to the front and speak with a mic so everybody can hear. So, Steve?
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Okay, very good.
All righty. My name is Steve Vinson.
And remember, 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. 2 minutes. My name is Steve Vinson. I am a retired pediatrician, 37 years. But I'm standing up here because I am the ghost of the wetlands past. I was on the Wetlands Board in 2007 when we denied the application for the development for this property. I walked this property with Rick Scarper, and we looked at it closely And also, I have a master's degree in environmental science and policy. So I have been away from the environmental community, been practicing pediatrics till 2 years ago, but I have a good bit of experience. I worked with Back Bay Restoration for a few years. I was thrilled to see a bit more detail about the project. I can tell you that wetland losses due to human impacts are not going to go away. I was and am still a staunch supporter of the environment, but they're going to happen. What's been talked about here is real. What warms my heart about this project is that there were wetlands there that went away because of what happened decades ago. And now there's an opportunity to convert them, or what's there, back to wetlands. And that's just wonderful. You don't have that opportunity too often. Go and buy property and make wetlands, but what kind of property are you making into wetlands? So I'll leave it at that. That's just a little bit of history about the property and what it was, but it was really a treat to see this and have walked the property with Rick.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
And that's probably my 2 minutes, so thank you very much.
Okay, Kaylin. And next up is Erilyn Malikan.
Hi, my name is Kaylin Salaji. I'm a student at the Environmental Studies program, and I would like to start by asking you to pull up the slide from 1958 picture with the blue outline. Okay, so I don't know if everybody can see very well, but there's a significant section that was already wooded area and has stayed that way for this entire time. And I just wanted to know why we are choosing to use part of that as the wetland for the wetland credits.
So the section you're referring to, I believe, is up here? Yeah, do we have a flash? Well,
I just turned it off.
here?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So that area is going to be where we have the entrance to the site constructed. So we're going to need to remove some trees to access the site in that area. But if you saw from Mike's presentation showing you the area inside all of this area, this is all wet back in 1958. So that's the area that's going to be restored back to wetlands.
Okay.
But this area up here, you are correct, it is a high area. We are going to need to disturb and remove the trees in the area where we need to access the site.
And is that going to be replanted afterwards?
The area that, it's going to, we need to maintain access to the site there, so we can't replant in the same area because we're going to need to get to the site to maintain it.
Okay. And then, I don't know how much time I have left, but for the page 23 of the Pleasure House Management Plan, it stated that it's important to know the ramifications of each project before any project can be selected in order to avoid negative impacts to the rare and sensitive habitats, such as the maritime forest on the property. Can you talk about why we've chosen to still use this as a place that we're going to take out some of this maritime forest?
So that management plan was for the entire site. It wasn't just for this particular area. So as you recall, that we do have the conservation area over 80 85 acres of the entire Pleasure House Point site. So all of that is going to remain. The area that we're showing here for the mitigation bank was not part of that conservation area.
Okay, that's your time, thank you. Erilyn Malakran, I'm not sure I got that right. And
Hello.
after that will be Russell.
It's Erilyn Malikian. Thank you for trying. Um,
I'm from the south, it works that way.
There are many ecotourism opportunities that this park brings, and one of them is birding. Over the 10 years of Pleasure House Point being here, the public has been so passionate about birding that they have identified 253 species from the Pleasure House Point on ebird.org, which is a Cornell University site. So my question is, how is this high amount of ecotourism and biodiversity going to be considered in this plan? And knowing that of the 253 species, 55% utilize the maritime forest in that picture as their dominant habitat. And in December of 2024 alone, birders in Pleasure House Point area have identified 55 different species. That speaks to the high use of biodiversity and public use of Pleasure House Point.
That's great. What was the question? I'm sorry. Just the question.
How is the high amount of ecotourism and biodiversity going to be considered in this plan?
Okay, so once the project is complete, it will be a biodiverse site. If you recall the pictures we showed of the sample site in Portsmouth, although it'll be a different look without the trees there, it's still going to be the grasses. We can get to that. That's going to promote the wildlife.
Okay, settle down.
Just because I have 2 minutes, I was wondering, my follow-up question would be, I was kind of more asking about the current habitat and what was going to be done about the current animals and ecosystem that currently exists.
Well, the idea is that this particular, when it looks like this, all of that habitat will return. Because obviously during construction, it's not going to happen. But you got to remember, this is a 118 acre site. This is 12 acres within that 118 acres.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Russell. Okay, and next after that will be Tyler Biratella.
Good afternoon. My name is Russell Deppy. I have lived in Virginia Beach most of my life. Love going to Pleasure House Point with my dog. It's one of my favorite places to go. I feel like in the conversation for all of this is about the most on-point example of missing the forest for the trees that I've ever seen. Yes, we appreciate that there are forests here, but this is a Pleasure House Point natural area. What does a natural area mean? It means that it should approximate what it was naturally before human activities. In this case, we had dredge spoils put on the site. With the dredge spoils on the site, you're going to have volunteer pine trees, things like that are going to pop up, and they're pretty. They have ecological uses. What we're trying to do, what the city is trying to do, is to return it to a wetland function that we had prior to putting dredge spoils on. Having tidal wetlands is an extremely important biological repository for all kinds of species, nursery for crabs, fish, things of that nature. We are trying to restore it to what it was before. We're still going to have the trails around the outside. We're still going to be able to enjoy it. It will be different. That doesn't make it worse. It's something that I think is very important, and we can't lose sight of that. I want to thank the city for all their hard work with this. You guys have done a great job. It's really hard to get credits right now. This is an opportunity that the city has already bought this property. It's important that we recognize that, we utilize it to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Okay. Tyler Biratella, followed by Kim Mayo.
Tyler Biratella, I live right back here on Mystic Cove, proud Ocean Park member. A lot of my questions were answered. That was a great presentation. Thanks. So I'm just going to use this time to make a comment. I think it's pretty clear, we sort of feel backed into a corner, this is almost rushed. I think this bank, this is a new term to me, by the way, this bank of wetland credits is more or less bankrupt for the city, and this is our chance to create some credits to be used elsewhere within the city. So my comment is, however the government meetings go, when people are negotiating, deciding what to prioritize project-wise, maybe we can say, hey, remember when these community members of Ocean Park helped you out with these wetland credits over here? Maybe we can put it in the sidewalk for them. So that's sort of my idea, how we leverage this, right? I think we're trending towards bailing out the city here with some credits. Maybe they can support us with something else in the future. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, Kim Mayo, followed by Bill Fleming.
Hi, I'm Kim Mayo. I'm a civic leader in District 9, and 5,200 trees is a lot, isn't it? Pleasure House Point is a refuge not only for humans and wildlife. I was born next to Walden Pond, so conservation is in my blood. I grew up in a semi-rural community, and it feels like Pleasure House Point is being used as a guinea pig, so we get credits for other city projects. And doesn't look like I'm the only person that feels that way, because I see a lot of people nodding their head. $12.1 million for taxpayers, and is absolutely being fast-tracked. So I don't have all the answers. I know a lot of other people wanted to be here today but couldn't at this time period. So I would request that this be delayed. There's too many unanswered questions, and I would like more questions answered. Thank you.
Okay, Bill Fleming, followed by Isabel Wells.
Hi, my name is Bill Fleming, and I'm a member of the Open Space Advisory Committee. None of this has been discussed at our meetings, which surprised me, so I'm glad that somebody sent me an email about it. The purpose of the Open Space Advisory Committee is to acquire land to establish and maintain and expand open space. It was started initially because of the Bragg Commission, but it's extended to other parts of the city as well. There are properties in the area of the Brock Environmental Center that are potentially available for acquisition for open space purposes. None of this has included the idea of a larger area that could be used for open space, and the idea of doing this one area in isolation without considering the other potential open space acquisitions is illogical to me. I would recommend a delay to include the larger open space possibilities in this area and give potential property owners a chance to sell their properties if they so choose. The other benefit of that would be there would be potentially more credits available over a large area, and would ecologically be better in keeping. I also happen to be a member of the Virginia Dare Soil and Water Conservation District, and I'm familiar with a lot of the best management practices that go on. Trees are considered riparian buffers, so creating a larger wetlands area and removing the riparian buffers, protecting the neighborhoods in the area is detrimental not only to wildlife but to people. And I would suggest that if we went to a larger area and included other properties that could be used for the area ecologically, that we could benefit by having better protection for the people in the area. Also, one of the things that gets considered is that the plan seems to be related to what things used to look like. We know that sea level rise is occurring, and the chances are that the water's going to be 3, maybe 4 feet higher in 50 or 75 years, So instead of thinking about how things used to be, we need to look forward and think about what things are going to look like in 50 years. Thanks.
Okay, Isabel Wells, followed by Chloe Beamer.
Hi, I'm Isabel Wells. I'm a student at the Environmental Studies program, and I wanted to ask specifically about the maritime forest ecosystem. So the city plans to cut down roughly 10 acres of trees, which currently compose part of the Pleasure House Point Maritime Forest. According to the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, maritime forests are, and I quote, significantly rarer than marshes. Virginia Beach has 0 acres of maritime forest outside of conservation lands. So how will the city compensate for this loss of a rare ecosystem, not just the trees, but the ecosystem itself, with this project, given the lack of maritime forests throughout the city and the broader state of Virginia?
Yeah, two things. With regard to sea level rise, this is the first tidal mitigation bank that was required to do a sea level rise analysis for itself using the Army Corps of Engineers procedure. So we did take that into account in the design. With regard to maritime forests, there are losses, but tidal wetlands are more rare and have been filled historically, not only in Virginia, but across the country. And that's why the regulations are, both at the state and the federal level, that you cannot impact any wetlands without restoring them in some manner. The maritime forest, we are creating a riparian buffer, and the species we're using are consistent with native maritime forests. So we are building back a buffer around the facility.
Just as a follow-up question, concerning the trees you're replacing, those seem like they'll be a lot closer to the water line. So what's your plan to prevent like ghost forest effects with saltwater inundation, as what's been seen at First Landing State Park?
Right. We're working with the land we've got, so we are limited to that area, but we're trying to keep it to the highest possible elevation for that very reason, so that as sea level rises, the species aren't dying out.
Thank you.
Okay, Chloe Beamer, followed by Kristen Pullman.
Hi, my name's Chloe Beamer. I'm born and raised in Virginia Beach. I moved away for about 10 years and came home because I thought some things were going on that were not so great in my hometown. And it really upsets me that we're cutting down 5,000 trees for a wetland that may or may not work. I'm looking at buying a home in this next year, and one of the neighborhoods I wanted to move to was Ocean Park so that I could have access to this great forest and trails. And finding out that it's going to be cut down and there's no real hard plan of where they're going to get 5,000 new trees to plant. Yeah, it's just comments there. It sucks, personally.
Hi, I'm Kristen Pullman, and I mainly do just have a question rather than a comment, because we've talked a lot about the trees, and I appreciate that you're going to have the silt curtains and turbidity curtains and things like that, but how is the fill being removed, transported, and where is it being transported to?
So it's first, clear the site, and then excavators come in, remove it, put it into tight dump trucks, and then we're looking at multiple sites to either dispose the material or reuse the material depending on its viability for reuse. Is it clean sand? Does it, if it's screened, do we have frag seed in it we wouldn't want to put onto the beach? So we're looking at different avenues on how to use the material before we look at just disposing of it. Because it's a very valuable sand, very valuable.
Okay, so it's planned, though, to be moved by dump truck around the city?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Jack Whalen, followed by Brian D.
Hi, my name is Jack. I am one of the original members of the Environmental Studies program, and I'm currently a junior in an engineering program at Colorado State University. And so my question is for the reconstruction of this wetland. mainly about the integrity of the surrounding ecosystem and natural area, with the use of larger machinery to kind of dig out this area to reconstruct the wetland. How is the risk of fragmentation or cracking of the soil being assessed? And with that, as Isabel mentioned, the saltwater infiltration of the surrounding ecosystem being assessed. And further, a study conducted by Clemson University on tidal wetlands found that they pose a risk of increasing the water table. And with that in mind, how can the public be assured that the lateral upflow of water does not pose a stability risk to the surrounding ecosystem and community?
I think that's kind of two questions in there. One, once the site is lowered, is there a concern about the stability of the soil, and will it allow groundwater to kind of intrude and create instability in the soil?
Yeah, kind of like a quick condition.
What's that?
A quick condition with the lateral upflow of water towards the soil.
What's the term you're using?
Quick condition.
Quick condition? In the tidal wetlands we've created, the groundwater is influenced, but in this area, we're not, the geotechnical studies that have been done, because there have been a couple geotechnical studies done to date, there's no concern about soil instability. The good thing is there is clay material in soils in this area, so they're going to be stable, and we're not excavating enormous depths. We're just excavating, 2-3 feet, 3 to 4 feet in areas. So we don't expect any soil instability, no intrusion of saltwater into drinking aquifers. And as sea level is rising, there is natural intrusion of salt water into the surrounding surface water table. So we don't expect any alteration of any significance.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Brian D., followed by Clay Burnick.
My name is Brian Deschler. I was in North Carolina until a year ago, but I spend probably 3 days a week walking along this trail, so I really enjoy it just like these people do. Some questions I have is really, I think the answer, the trail's not going to close. The trail that exists today that wraps around, that goes down towards Shore Drive, that's going to remain as it is, or it's going to be rerouted?
The trail, hold on. So the trail to the south here will remain open until we build the bridge.
Okay.
But everything to the west, we're not touching.
Okay. All right, then, okay. And then I have the poll side yet from the environmental studies group, which I really like listening to, is if I ask them, do you approve of this project? I'm guessing they don't. So I really hope there's a lot of collaboration between them and the city to get their input. So thank you very much. A question about, you're gonna take trucks in here. How's this stuff getting out? What path of roads are they gonna take? Are they going down Marlin Bay? Are they going down East Stratford? Where are we gonna see these dump trucks?
They'll all be going in and out through Marlin Bay to Shore Drive. As far as inner part of the community, they will not be going through. It's all Marlin Bay Drive, so kind of right on the edge.
Okay, and then my last comment is, this used to be a wetland, but my Jurassic Park says nature finds a way. And now we have trees there, and now we're gonna cut them down.
All right, Clay Burnick, followed by Chris Freeman.
Hi, I'm Clay Burnick. I'm chair of the Friends of Live Oaks Community Environmental Organization. I also happen to serve as chair of the Open Space Advisory Committee, but today I'm just speaking on behalf of Friends of Live Oaks. We met this past week and considered this project. We know it's been part of the plans, as was mentioned before, since the property was purchased. We also wanted to point out that the city's official tree is a live oak, and thanks to this organization, the Bayfront Advisory Committee, they made a resolution to City Council, and City Council replaced Bradford pear with live oak as our official city tree back in 2004. So good progress. We support the conceptual master plan and its implementation. We also support the city's tree replacement policy, which City Council adopted to replace lost trees taken down for city projects on city property elsewhere in the city. So if there are 5,200 trees or whatever, we look forward to seeing where all those trees are going to be planted. We also would hope that as information becomes available for the project, that it can be posted on the city's website for this, so the community can have a chance to hear factual information instead of hearsay, or let emotion take hold on things that really need to have sound information. Some minor points that I wanted to bring up. We would like to see if the access location could slightly be shifted, because our review of the location shows that by slightly realigning that, you can avoid most of the live oaks in the area where the canoe access ultimately would be. The other thing would be, now that we've heard that Mr. Ty's bank can, in fact, be used to put credits in the Lynn Haven watershed, we wanted to know if the city might be willing to investigate the potential to buy those private credits for the initial needs for the projects that we have on the tight time frame for the bond referendum and flood mitigation, and let those move forward, and then we could do this in a more reasonable time frame. Also, that would allow us to maybe refine the locations of where the mitigation bank areas would be disturbed, and maybe avoid the larger live oaks that are there. Lastly, we would like to see if, as part of the master plan, it called out that removing non-native invasive and native aggressive plant species from Pleasure House Point is a part of a plan. Maybe that could be tied into the work that we're doing here, at least for the areas that are going to be disturbed in and around them. The last point that I wanted to bring up would be that Friends of Live Oaks has had a great partnership working with the Native Plant Society, the Master Gardeners, and the folks at Virginia Tech's Diamond Springs property on creating and establishing a new live oak nursery. And we would like to work with the city to try to transplant and salvage any seedlings or live oak saplings that might be disturbed by the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Chris Freeman, followed by Kathy Damon.
Hi, all. I'd like to start out by piggybacking a little bit off of what Clay said. I think related to the potential for these new credits that have just been opened up, does that create an opportunity for us to have a little bit more time to better evaluate this entire plan? I think the citizens of Virginia Beach value knowledge and want to understand the studies that have taken place in order for us to make better sense of this project. And certainly we value wetlands in this community. That is a critical importance, and I want to honor that. I also want to honor the good work our city's doing related to regional resiliency, and the work that's taking place that's putting the need for these wetlands is something that we need to consider, just as our city needs to look and evaluate at the current tree canopy that exists there. All those three things are incredibly important, and we don't want them pushing against each other. And furthermore, I want to say, man, our students ask tough questions, yeah? Right? And the city has given students in Virginia Beach a voice here, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. I'm honored to be able to work with these students. The city arborist has reached out to us and wants to have us help work in unison with her to look at this site. So that's fantastic. Now we want these students' voices to be connected to the mitigation plan for what's going to happen if we move forward with this project. And here's a hard truth. Dominion needed to take down 38 acres of tree canopy in Virginia Beach. At a cost for replanting, they gave the city over $1 million for tree replanting. So that's $30,000 per acre. So are we holding ourselves to the same accountability related to replanting this forest if, in fact, we move forward with this plan to cut down that tree canopy? Thank you.
Okay, Kathy Damon, followed by Tim Solonic.
Hi, I'm Kathy Damon. I just want to say, in the first place, a tree is not necessarily a tree. If we're cutting down little scrawny scrub pines or whatever and having them replaced by bay oaks, live oaks, they are going to work differently, they're going to be bigger, they are going to suck up water, they're going to help with the flooding problem. We have a live oak that we got from Friends of Live Oaks 12 years ago. It was 2.5 feet, now it's over 20 feet. So, and I'm told that they do help to suck up water, so that's going to help with the wetlands there. I did have a question about kind of how do the credits and banks work specifically? Is it only limited to the city limits that you can, have an offset or whatever? And then also, how much is this going to help? This particular plan, is it going to just help the area where it's taking in the water? Is it?
So, oh, do I answer?
Go ahead and answer.
Okay, so the mitigation bank is going to develop 8 acres of offset tidal wetland credits. So that's going to help all the projects in the city that are within the Lynn Haven River Basin. If we need them elsewhere, for example, the southern rivers, they're also noted to be possible candidates for this bank in the MBI that we mentioned earlier. The other question I think you asked was?
How much is it going to help? Is it just going to help save that little Broad Creek area, Crab Creek, or is it going to?
The entire, well, I'll let the environmental specialist answer this one.
I was gonna say, the great thing about tidal marshes is they serve as nurseries for juvenile fish. So it's gonna help the entire fishery of the Lynn Haven, which then feeds the fishery of the Chesapeake Bay, which feeds the ocean. So there are gonna be benefits that ripple out from it. We don't know how far that is, but it's gonna be significant. That's the hope. The other thing is we're also hoping for oysters to come back into the facility. All the natural animals and fish that are using the marshes along the Lynn Haven can then use this area.
Okay, Tim Solonic, followed by Martha Thrall.
I'm going to do my best not to cry, but thank you, everybody who came out, because so many people love Pleasure House Point. I want to thank Councilman Schulman. He's got a tough job for bringing us forward so we can speak after the 90% design. 3 questions. Before my 3 questions, PHP is about 67 acres, and is Christy still here? Oh, right there. How many acres is CBF, just the land? 10. I thought that included the King's Grant also.
10 out of 118.
Gotcha. So just FYI, everybody, Pleasure House Point is about 67 acres of land, including CBF. My 3 questions are live oaks being avoided? And if not, will they be transplanted on site or nearby?
I know there's, like, where that construction entrance sits right now,
About
there's 2 significant live oaks. One to the left that we're looking at right now to see if it can be saved. We will inventory them and see if we can save 2 or 3 of the species, the prominent ones. Some of the others throughout, like if they're located within the center, no.
But he asked about
Oh,
transplanting.
the ones I've seen out there are significant, the big ones. We can't retransplant those. The smaller ones,
Dude, yes you can. There's a 99% success rate transplanting the largest live oak you've ever seen in your life, but
Okay.
that hasn't happened here yet. My next question is, what dates for the city public hearings for this? Like there was a presentation in 2017 at Ocean Park Civic League, and then in between the project and the JPA.
We don't have I don't have the dates, but the webpage that we mentioned, we'll put that up there on the FAQ and have those dates of those public meetings posted for you.
Okay, cool. And again, this was brought up the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and thanks to Councilman Schulman. and there's 6 working days between now and when they're going to vote at City Council to blast this through. My last question is, why is the city on track to be short $1.2 billion of economic value in its tree canopy goals? I think that answered the question.
I'm not Parks and Recreation. I'm sorry, I can't answer about the tree canopy.
Okay, Martha Throlt and then Chris Ludford.
Hello, everyone. I'm mostly a lifetime native of the area, Bay Lake Pines, right down the street, and I live on Lake Joyce. And I lived on Lake Joyce before they started dumping everything they could off the highways into Lake Joyce, as we've become a residual for the dirt and such. I've lived here long enough to see Ocean Park developed from beach bungalows to 5-story and high-density living, and everybody loves Ocean Park. So do the animals, or did. This property was a gift, I think kind of godly gift, but I feel like it's being exploited, and I'm concerned from that standpoint. If it behooves nature, that's great. If it's just taking from nature so that some developer can eat out a little bit more, it's not so great. One of the probably biggest beneficiaries of this project, in my opinion, my career is real estate, by the way, are the developers that own property immediately adjacent to this, who it's showing up as green trees, part of the greenery there, that most likely will be destroyed as a part of aftermath of this, as they're looking to permit building on those lots. And when I hear the Southern Watershed, you can use the credits out there. There's other builders and developers that are hungry for land. All you have to do is listen to the Virginia Beach Development Authority talking about building on wetlands. It's not a secret. It's not a secret if you pay attention. This land will serve as a drainage for Ocean Park, from the highways. Ocean Park already has drainage issues. If you look back on the minutes, and if you look back on the Indigo Dunes articles and such, the forest served a buffer. They served as a buffer. The buffer's going away. The next thing up, the buffer will be houses, and they will be affected by storms. So I think it's probably, as they say, a done deal, because boy, are we here. I don't know who started this baby again, but somebody wants to move forward, and I suspect it's the same people that are destroying this city. Thank you.
If you don't mind, and thank you, Ms. Throat, for the comments, because I've seen some of the comments and concerns on social media, and I've been asked about them as well in person. So, relative to the adjacent privately owned property, that is I guess by right they can build. I think it's 14 townhomes. And I asked, and I want everybody to know this, I asked our planning department, our planning director, our city manager, if there are any private land use applications currently pending for anywhere in the vicinity of this property, and the answer to that question is no. There are no pending land use applications, so that nobody is trying actively right now via a city application to do anything. There are things like where people would come to us, or come to the planning department really, with inquiries about what it is they might be able to do on a particular site, and those are pre-submittal meetings is what they are. So that's where somebody comes to our city with an idea, and they talk to our various city departments. City departments have a chance to comment around across several departments in terms of how they think a potential project might impact them. And there have been pre-submittal meetings. As you might expect in this area, it's extremely difficult to do much of anything large scale because of our stormwater regulations, because of the fact that it is a treed location, and there's requirements that and this is a Chesapeake Bay Act buffer area as well. So there's requirements with respect to tree replacements, when you're proposing to build in areas like these. But, I was wondering, and I don't know if, maybe Jim can answer or somebody, but if we are taking away uplands and converting them into lowlands, what does that do to the riparian barrier? Does that move the CBPA Act barrier landward in such a way that might, I guess, give the community a little bit of comfort with respect to the ease of going forward with any future private development in close proximity to this site?
The short answer is, when these canals and wetlands are created, the RPA, under the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area Ordinance of the city, the RPA buffer will then extend 100 feet landward from these new marshes. So the RPA, while being built in initially, because it's a water-dependent use, building a marsh, tidal marsh has to be near the tide, and it should be where they used to be. But the buffer will move inland with those canals and the new marsh, so it'll be landward of that.
So if what I'm hearing your answer is, rather than, I guess, be of benefit to an adjacent private owner who is potentially seeking to develop properties in the immediate vicinity, it could make things a little bit more difficult, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
Okay, Chris Ledford, followed by Jack Bryan.
Appreciate your time. My name is Chris Ledford. Lived within 2 miles of Lesnar Bridge since 1991. I like to say I'm a legacy resident. There's been a lot of legacy decision-making. For those city officials and for the city council members here, we appreciate what you're doing. We appreciate you being here. But I just want to take a minute to kind of help you understand why people like the previous speaker, I think I'm right on this, Martha, and myself and so many people are here, is because so many ideas and so many things have come along over the years from the city and through city partnerships with the public that have not come to fruition. And now all of a sudden, this is going to happen, even though, you know, it's been said it would happen, but it didn't for so long. It raises suspicions. We are paranoid because of the things that have been done wrong in the past, because of the backdoor deals, the developer deals. So please understand, this is why we're all here, because we have been wronged so many times before, and the city's had a part in that. We've got 3 or 4 things right now that have been, since 1997, the Shore Drive Corridor Plan. Have any of y'all ever seen that? It's about as big as a phone book, okay? We're supposed to get a bike trail from Greenwell Road to 64th Street. Where is it? When is that gonna be a priority, okay? If I sound sarcastic, I apologize, but I'm gonna be sarcastic because this is my chance, all right? Waterman's Walk, Vista Circle, from Chicks all the way across and under the bridge. There was supposed to be a Waterman's Walk. City employees, have y'all ever heard of that? Never heard of it. How about the Shore Drive Corridor Plan? Have y'all heard of that? I ask you to look it up, okay? Currently, the city marina is without restrooms, without a facility for the police and fire to train, to get out of the weather. That's been 5 or 6 years. They haven't had any facility at the city marina. But now, this is a priority. Now we've got to take these trees down. Now we've got to have this wetlands bank. Where is the corridor plan? Where is the bike trail? Where is Waterman's Walk? Where are the restrooms at the city marina? Where are all these things we've been promised for 25 plus years? Since 1991, 94, 97, meeting after meeting. I was on the Green Space Committee. I've been the president of my civic league, or had been for 11 years, Bayville Park. I've been involved. I've been a good steward, okay? And a lot of the people in this room have been involved and been a good steward. So when we act a little paranoid, when we act a little suspicious, it's for a reason, because none of these things have happened, okay? The only thing that has happened is 35 miles an hour, thank goodness. But a man had to die for that, okay? People died to get that. So now all of a sudden we're to believe that this wetlands bank is an urgent thing, that this has to happen. It just, again, it raises the suspicions of at least me. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but Thank you.
Okay. Jack Bryan, followed by Todd Solomon.
That's a hard one to follow. I like this map. Historically, I like the 1958 map. I grew up in Ocean Park from 1962 until recently, until 1992. I live in Bay Lake Pines now, on Lake Joyce. There's a lot of science here, there's a lot of science there. What I do know is that we worked to get Pleasure House Point to be preserved. And to do that, we asked that the city take it on as a wetlands bank. I will say that it seems to have come time for them to use a portion of it as a wetlands bank. I'm thankful that we got to this point because it was going to be 5,000 homes in 5 different high-rises. We didn't see that as a feasible option. I proposed, along with a group of people from the Shore Drive Community Coalition, helped found that group. I would like for you to actually look at this from the perspective that I saw it in 1962 to 1965. This area here, let me know if you can't hear me. This area here is Pleasure House Creek. And the whole area with Pleasure House Point and Bayville Farms is really the area that we need to look at. This project has been put down to a small area of 12 acres. I assume it's 12. But Pleasure House Point has silted over. It silted over after the Army Corps and the city began putting soil there on the Pleasure House Point. During that time, I saw oyster beds disappear. And during that time, I saw a separation between the freshwater and the saltwater. The freshwater wells up from the Yorktown Aquifer and the Allegheny Aquifer. There are nutrients there that are vital to oysters and shellfish production. Those, I said nutrients, they're minerals. They're needed by those organisms to make what they do. If you look at Pleasure House Creek, if the city could put its eye on that, and it already is by allowing them to turn this back into a wetland, to allow the mixture of that fresh water, to allow the trading between the saltwater, and I know you said about ghost forests, but also we need to consider that the fresh water needs to come out and it needs to mix into that area. And Pleasure House Point needs to be a little bit deeper because at the point that it's at, it has no oxygen and cannot produce the blue crabs that I enjoyed when I was a child, or the oysters, or the natural environment that we did. When I was young, at least 3 small dead rises were able to navigate all the way up to the 7-Eleven area on Shore Drive. Bayville Farms was able to use the area to load and unload goods when it was a dairy farm.
Thank you, Jack.
And thank you.
Todd Solomon.
All right, my name's Todd Solomon. I promised Phil I'd be very brief. I'm the last speaker, I believe. I said I was going to ask 1 question, but I changed my mind. I'm asking 2. Real quick, there's a Lynnhaven restoration or a Lynnhaven River Basin ecosystem restoration project that back in May of this year, I guess it's a partnership with the city and the Army Corps that's putting together and looking for places to restore wetlands in the Lynnhaven Basin. Do you know anything about this and anything about how many credits that will add to the bank?
That's not, that particular project is coordination with the Corps. They're managing that project. That project is not creating tidal wetland credits. That's restoring the oyster reef. It's creating oyster reefs and also living shorelines.
Okay, and so none of that gets credit?
No.
Gotcha, okay, and then the second question, on there, you said that the bank would be used for city projects. I believe the slide, I don't remember which one it was, that mentioned dredging was part of that. Is that considered, or is the SSD neighborhood dredging, or the neighborhood dredging projects considered something that could use this bank? The neighborhood ones, well, that's the private ones that people dig out their canals so they can put their big boats in. Is that considered a city project that could use this bank?
No, it's not. The SASD projects are because it's with private landowners cannot use this mitigation.
Even though it's run through the city as a program and the city manages it?
Correct. It cannot be used for that.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, we have two late signups, Ronald Marsh, followed by Steve Osler.
Thank you so much, Phil. I sent this to you as an email, and I would really like you to put this on your website. My question is, how do we citizens see a comprehensive list of the wetland credits that have been used in the recent maybe 7 years by like the Amazon development? How many credits did that use? And how many credits did the silo at Southern Pines use? And the flood projects like Bow Creek, you keep saying Bow Creek used a lot of credits. You obviously had a bank of credits, and now the bank has run dry. And nobody expected it to run dry, but the solution is right here. Let's tear down hundreds or thousands of trees at Pleasure House Point because we've run dry. The planning is not planned with these credits. It's like giving people $500 to live off of, and they spend $700. Please put it on the website. Let us see where the credits went and what council approved for development that came in front of, and now we have to give up this because we did all that. Thank you.
Okay, Steve Osler.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the time. I feel like the project's a little bit rushed, but just wanted to ask some funding questions. You mentioned 3 CIP funding lines associated with this, totaling $12 million. CIP 100617, are you familiar with that?
Can you give me the name?
There's only 3 funding lines. One of them is
Yep.
the Rudy Inlet Weir project.
Oh, yes, that's one of them.
Is that on the Lynnhaven River?
No, it's not.
How does that support projects on the Lynnhaven River then?
We are, I'm going to say, borrowing funding from that project. That project will be reimbursed in the upcoming CIP process.
So the credits from here are supporting the Rudy Inlet Weir project?
No, not credits, no. We're just using funding from that project because it has appropriations already on that to move to this project.
Thank you. And how long will these credits last for?
Yeah, well, the timeline, we have to have the bank established, but when all 8 acres of credits are used, then they're done.
Unlimited? There's no timeline, there's no expiration date to them?
No.
Thank you. And last question, this public hearing, we only allotted 45 minutes for public comment. Before the project begins, is there any other time for public comment in January?
Yes, the answer is yes. There will be a transfer of funds request to City Council on January 7th. Those items that are on that are all subject to public comment.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
When we start talking in acronyms, sometimes I think we just got to remember that the public doesn't know alphabet soup like we do. I wanted to make sure, the CIP concept was fully fleshed out. So from the funding sources that we're borrowing from, there's 3 projects. One of them is the Rudy Inlet Weir project, and each CIP, it's a capital improvement program project. There are appropriations made over a period of time. This our long-term capital budget, and funds are appropriated and deposited into the project accounts. Sometimes there's fund balance that sits unutilized in these project accounts, where maybe people are getting through design, but the construction phase or property acquisition phase hasn't quite happened yet, and the fund balance is sitting there, and it's not currently being utilized. But we're close to next year's budget, so in the 25-26 budget, we'll be able to, I guess, reappropriate funds to replenish that which we're taking. Another one of the projects that we're borrowing from is the Bayfront, the beach restoration program, and that was of concern to me because I wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to be something that would impact our ability to nourish our beaches, and I've been assured that there's plenty of fund balance there to do what we need to do right now, and that by the time we need it, it will have already been replenished in connection with the upcoming budget process. So I just wanted to unpack that a little bit for anybody who wasn't familiar with how our CIP budget works.
Sir, so is there the $2.5 million from the beach replenishment project too? Is there a line of funding that's going to replenish that?
That will be a part of the budget approval process in this year's upcoming budget. And I mean, that will be, I'm sure, as part of the manager's proposed budget, which then the council gets to react to and make adjustments to through reconciliation. But I mean, this project is something that is of benefit to all council districts. So I mean, through the flood protection program and through our road projects that need to get done that have these wetlands impacts. So I wouldn't imagine that there'd be any room for argument about replenishing those programs that we're allowed to be borrowed from in order to complete this.
Yeah, thank you. So no, there isn't a line of funding to replace that, but.
Well, we'll see when the budget comes out, so the process is the manager proposes a budget, and then the council has until May 31 or whatever it is to approve it. So I expect that, and I've been told that, those borrowed from the donor projects will be made whole in connection with the manager's proposed budget.
Okay, we have one more speaker, Michelle Sorensen.
Hello, everybody. Josh, thank you very much for your work. BAC as well, all of the city employees, very much appreciate it. Do we have an inventory of wetland acreage? How do we know we need more?
Yeah, this is not about inventorying existing acreage. It's a question of all the city projects, which ones are going to impact tidal wetlands, and then where is the mitigation coming from for that? So when the city applies for an application to build a project, if there's a 1 acre tidal wetland impact, they then have to find 1 acre. So the city was saying they've gone through the bond referendum projects and tried to estimate them, but at this time, none of those projects really are that far along in design, so you don't have accurate numbers yet because you don't have detailed design. So the demand or the need for credits is kind of evaluated on a monthly basis as projects are being put together. And then you have to look out at the market and say, are there mitigation banks available that have those credits? How many credits do they have? Now, the city nor anybody knows what line of people are lined up behind a mitigation bank to buy those credits. And the reason is the banker doesn't need to share that information. That's private business information. So as best we have tried to figure out how many credits are lined up for private banks, the private bankers don't have to tell us. So how quickly they sell is literally unknown until you look up every month what their roster has left.
My question is more directed to how many acres of wetlands do we need? Why are we even talking about this?
Well, we need currently 2.7.
Yeah,
2.7.
Mike, can you get his?
No, I meant for the Lynn Haven Rip. I meant for this area. You all are assuming that we need wetlands for the area to protect the area. I think we all are agreeing to that. What I'm asking is, how do we know, what is our sweet spot? Lynn Haven River now is planting oysters. They know how many oysters, acres of oysters they need to keep the basin clean? How do we know how many acres of wetlands we need to protect our area here? And how is that, I would imagine if we're talking about adding to it and subtracting from it, I would want to know what the it is. That's my first question, if that's okay. The second thing is, what are we doing to protect our current wetlands? I'm looking at the wetlands that are out in the middle of the basin here, and they're being accessed by boaters. They're being destroyed. What are we doing to protect what we currently have?
The second question is quicker to answer. So there's the local wetland board has title regulations. The state DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, has regulations that are specifically for wetland impacts, and the Army Corps of Engineers has a federal program with the EPA that reviews all applications. Then there's the Chesapeake Bay Act that looks over the riparian buffers within 100 feet of all tidal wetlands and creeks. So there's a layer of local government, state, and federal government regulations.
So the protections are written, but are the protections actually facilitated, and are they achieving an outcome?
They're definitely facilitated, in that it takes a long time to get permits. You have to minimize your impacts. You have to prove that you cannot minimize or avoid your impacts any further before you can even talk about mitigation per the regulations. As far as the number of acres in the Lynn Haven, I think you were getting at, there were a lot more tidal wetlands in the Lynn Haven over the history, and we. Sadly, I don't think we'll ever get back to that target number. So this is just trying to provide the acreage needed to mitigate city projects.
Okay, and regarding that, I live on the other side of Lesnar Bridge. We have a phase coming due, and I'm wondering if there will be credits left for that. I know our marina is trying to protect our wetland so that we can contribute to that. That was my last question, and thank you.
Repeat the question, you live on the east side of...
On the other side, it's the next phase to be completed on Shore Drive. There are 2 pump stations, I believe, and an elevation of an intersection there, which is huge, only a block or so from the river. I was wondering if any of the credits are going to be left for that. Thank you.
The credits needed for those pump stations have already been acquired.
Okay, I think we have one more question down at the end of this table.
Hello, this is just a really quick question. So this project is estimated to cost around 12 million, correct? So in this, there's gonna be garbage trucks that are used for the removal of trees, soil, anything that's needing to be removed. And that's gonna cost money to do, so is that cost already included in the 12 million?
It is, yes.
Fully, even if there's, do we know how like estimated poundage of this?
So they work in, it says dump trucks. The dump trucks work in yards, 8 yards or 12-yard dump trucks, figure average 10. If we're moving 60,000 yards of material, divide that out by 10, that's how many dump trucks are gonna go. All that cost has already been included in that 12.1.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay, that concludes the questions, comments, and answers. For the BAC, is there any additional business that anybody needs to speak about? You're nodding your head yes? And it is? Okay. Just come down here, please.
Because the mission of the Bayfront Advisory Commission, it's right here on our agenda, is to review and make recommendations to the City Council regarding public and private projects and issues associated with the Bayfront area, I would like to make a motion that we recommend City Council delay the vote to transfer funds on this project until the end of January to allow staff an opportunity to explore the use of the tie bank, to allow staff to answer all the public questions that are currently coming in, and to allow the civic leaders a chance to distribute information to their communities at an appropriate time and place.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Okay, the motion fails. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? What?
60,000 yards of material going over to Lynnhaven Inlet on that
Okay,
bridge.
we're done.
6,000 trucks.
I know, we heard it.
6,000 trucks in how many days?
We heard it, Wally.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion that will not impact council voting. Basically, it doesn't have an impact whether council takes action or not. But as part of the process, I feel like we haven't learned about this in a timely manner. So what I would suggest is that we do take our responsibilities seriously, and that includes the mission statement that Wendy just read, and the mission statement of the Infrastructure Committee, and make a motion that whereas the project will take time for construction, planting, and subsequent review, et cetera, through the regulatory agencies before the credits can be utilized, we move that the city engage and communicate with the Infrastructure Committee of the Bayfront Advisory Commission throughout the project, and basically I listed each and every phase that would be considered, for example, when the city issues a notice to proceed to the contractor for construction, it receives 15% of the tidal wetland credits. So basically, what it's asking to do is to formalize a relationship between our infrastructure committee and the city of Virginia Beach, this project, and that we be engaged in the discussions and have communications ongoing with the city. So I've got a copy of it if anybody wants to see it. But it doesn't adversely impact what is being proposed on the 7th, but it does make certain that the Bayfront Advisory Commission is, that we are aware of everything that goes on with this project as it moves forward.
Are there specifics in there about, is it monthly?
The specifics are that when in some of the documentation that we've received, and I'll briefly go through this, I don't want to read it all. As I said, when the city issues a notice to proceed for construction, they will receive 15% of the tidal wetlands credits. We want to be part of that process. When the construction and plantings are completed, at which time the city then will receive an additional 10% of the tidal wetlands credits. That raises it to 25% of the credits that we will be part of that consideration. And then when monitoring the project for 1 year, at which time regulatory agencies will review the project before releasing an additional 15%, that raises it to 50%. So basically what it does is kind of makes formal what our expectations are in relationship to this project. I don't see it as being onerous. our engagement is just to make sure that we are aware of the progress,
So like presentation of some sort,
that we be invited.
okay, in the invitation of when that information is disseminated.
And maybe I need to capitalize engage.
Is the motion to submit that to the city to request that engagement? I'm not sure what form this
Yes.
motion is taking. Okay.
Yes, I mean, that would be part of this consideration.
It needs a second.
Here, let me.
Tony, can I ask that you guys really do a little better job of keeping up your website with project statuses? You know, we quite often look at it and the information is dated. So, you know, and I'm not sure it needs to be updated every single month, and although that should be easy to do, but at least every couple of months, if that could be done, and people kind of know what's going on. And that's not just for the BAC, that's for everybody. Yeah, that would be a help for everybody in the city.
Yes, absolutely.
And just in this, it might make more sense to say that you move to request the city will engage. 'Cause
That's
not-
fine. However you need to.
I'm just not sure it's
form.
appropriate for this body to direct the city, like city staff is directed by city
Okay.
council. So I think it would come as a letter to city council and potentially to Public Works saying that you request
Right.
that relationship.
As long as it, you know, the end result is what is most important.
Sure.
And I'll reiterate that. I mean, I think trying to formalize this engagement of the BAC with this project and with the city is just a recognition that we don't know all the information we need to know on an ongoing basis. And, you know, the point about updating your site, you only have to update it when the status changes. And then sometimes it's a matter of just using a different color of, instead of using black, use a red for your lettering. So, yes, so however,
Well,
we need to do it.
unless there's a date on it, though, you don't know when the last change was.
public servants are here to serve the people. They answer to the people, not the other way around. Public servants are elected to answer to the people, not the other way around. So it is the duty of the city to answer to the people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not, I'm just saying that for this board, I think if this motion is taking this form, it would be appropriate if you're going to submit this letter to city council or to city staff to request that engagement, is this body doesn't directly direct city staff to do things, that's city
Okay,
council's
right.
purview.
Well, and on the day of the vote for the funds transfers, I can talk about the engagement that we've had here today and the request being made that the board be briefed, or the commission be briefed on a periodic basis as these milestones are hit.
Right.
I think that's what you're really looking for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
keep the
whether-
engagement going.
Right, right, whether it's a motion or just a letter of request. You know, it does the same thing.
I'd like a motion from the board.
It's
That's
more,
fine.
I'm
For
just
the
asking,
commission.
because I'm not typically in a position where I'm taking minutes for staff, so this is more for my clarification. But my understanding of what is on the table right now is a motion to submit this letter with the change to request that engagement, to be submitted to city council and potentially public works staff from this body, and there's been a second that's set.
Okay, so we have a, all right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions? Okay, call for a vote. All in favor? Okay. Anybody opposed? All right. Motion approved.
And thank you for your advice always.
Okay. Absolutely last chance. Anything else? Okay, meeting is adjourned.